Hey everybody, thanks for coming out. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it and nice to see you. I appreciate the introduction. Thanks so much. So just to rehash a small amount of that, my name is Rob Sand. I was born and raised in Decorah in northeast Iowa. Grew up there. My dad was from there as well. Long-time family in Winnesheek County. Before that, we were down in Auditor, which you probably didn't know until they won one of the restaurants there won Best Burger this year. So Auditor is back on the map, but it's always been on the map for us in the Sand family. Grew up there, did a lot of hunting and fishing growing up. Ended up leaving Iowa for college. Made me appreciate what there was here to come back to. I was one of those folks who just sort of wanted to explore. And having left the Midwest, I now can tell you from my own personal experience, yes, we are friendly here. Yes, it is a pretty area. Yes, it is a good pace of life. Went to University of Iowa Law School and then ended up at the Attorney General's office where I was the state's chief public corruption prosecutor from 2010 until 2017. So if you remember the Iowa Film Office tax credit scandal, I prosecuted those cases. If you remember the largest lottery rigging scheme in American history that Eddie Tipton masterminded, I ran the investigation and prosecution on that case as well. Lots of stuff in between, including your everyday average small town clerk who was embezzling money from their neighbors. It was from that work at the Attorney General's office that I got to be familiar with the state auditor's office. That's because they conduct all of Iowa's public corruption investigations, right? So their investigations would come to my desk where I, as a prosecutor, would be deciding how I was going to handle them. And I got to know people over there, started working with them, and really enjoyed working with them in the work that they did. I did see some of the things that happened there that I thought maybe could be done a little bit differently. But I hit the point probably about 6 years into my job where I started to feel differently about the world. Criminal prosecution, if you're not too familiar with it, is never a happy job, right? Even when you get the outcome that you want, there's nobody who says, well, I'm really glad that this happened. I'm so glad that we met. This has been fun. And, you know, it's important to take the things that go wrong in the world and have accountability for them. But I wanted to be doing something that gave me an opportunity to have more of a positive impact as opposed to just making bad things less bad. And I thought about the things that I saw at the auditor's office, and I started looking into the office and found that it had a very broad mandate to improve government efficiency. Well, that's a no-brainer. What a wonderful thing to be able to do, to fuel our ability to govern ourselves the way we're supposed to under our Constitution, right? Because that's what our government is. It's us trying to figure out how to live together without resorting to a king or a queen telling us what to do. And anytime you can make that mission more efficient and more effective, I think you are doing right by everyone. And so I decided to run in 2018, and in my term in the office that we've had so far, we've addressed a lot of those issues. There had been issues related to the auditor's office where we'd had investigations that maybe weren't going to work quite as well in court. And that was because there weren't people with a law enforcement background in the auditor's office. There are now. We created a new role in the office, a new job. It's called Auditor Investigator, and it's for people who have actually graduated from the Law Enforcement Academy and done work in law enforcement. We did this because there's simply a balance in the office between the work that they do in two different divisions, right? We've got our financial audit division and then our investigative division. And we're very glad to have scores of CPAs and accountants in the office, but we want to balance them out with people who are going to make sure that their experience in a court of law and in law enforcement will help the state hold people accountable when they steal taxpayer money, right? That we want to make sure that those investigations are going to work in court. And so now we've got people with a law enforcement background in the office. The other thing that we did that was very important to me was creating that efficiency program that got me excited to run in the first place. The program is called PI. We named it that because it should be as popular as pie. Who does not like saving money, right? I have some bad jokes to describe to you how the program works. I'm going to check and make sure I have time for all of them. I think I do. And we will have time for Q&A, so anyone who's got questions, let me know. The heart of the program is the pie chart. It's just a checklist of basic money-saving practices that people can do to save taxpayer money. We ask cities, counties, school districts to fill it out every year. Send it back to us, let us know how they're doing. We can make their information then public as to which efficiency practices they're implementing and which they haven't yet, right? That also means that they get entered into our pie contest. Every year, we give out awards, certificates, and actual pie that I travel around the state and eat with everyone because I want them to know how much I appreciate their hard work on behalf of taxpayers. So we go out and we give awards for our pie contest. We do that for our best performing cities, counties, and school districts of different sizes. We also do that for those who are the most improved, right? Because when you're talking about where you are in life and what deserves recognition, I think that hard work is an important piece of that. It's not always where you are, sometimes it's where you started, right? And so if a small town maybe isn't doing that great, but boy, they used to not be doing any of this, then we should recognize them for their effort. And then the final part of the program, again, this is the PIE program where we're working to improve government efficiency, is we collect ideas that help save money. And we put them in the pie chart so that every year we're helping spread those ideas across the state. Those are called pie recipes. So anytime someone has come up with an idea that saves money, we add it to the program. We try to let the rest of the state learn about it as soon as possible. If you're listening to this, you're saying probably, well, that sounds like a pretty good program. That makes a lot of sense. Doesn't sound like it would be too expensive to run. Sounds like it would help people save a lot of money. You're giving recognition and an incentive, right? Boy, that sounds really good. You know who agreed with you? The state of Mississippi. This program is only 2 years old and it has already been copied by the state of Mississippi. Their state auditor looked at the program. They said all those things you just said to yourself in your head. And they called us up. Hey, can we do this? We said, absolutely. Maybe you'll come up with some Mississippi pie recipes that we can bring back to Iowa and copy right here, right? I have to note too, right? I am a Democrat. The auditor of the state of Mississippi is a Republican. You have to stoop pretty low to borrow an idea from a Democrat these days, right? So the fact that he was willing to say he's willing to travel around Mississippi and admit that he got this program from a Democrat tells you what a good job it does at saving money, right? But I want to talk about that too, about partisanship, because I think that's something that is poisoning our politics at every level. I was a registered independent when I first registered to vote. I'm sorry if you're standing here listening to me and you're a diehard Democrat, but I'm a diehard public servant. And I don't believe that any party has a monopoly on good ideas. And I'm not interested in hurting voters or taxpayers or people in order to pull one over on someone who doesn't share my party affiliation. I think this is important, and it's not just something that I talk about, it's something that I do in terms of how I run the office. Our senior leadership team that I created after winning in 2018 has a Democrat, an independent, and a Republican. We work together day in, day out. We vote very differently, but that doesn't matter. What that means is the conversations we have in the office about what we're digging into, about how we're going to dig into it, those conversations are things that we have with people who think differently from each other. I actually think that that's good. I don't want a conversation where everyone is looking at something from the same angle, trying to decide what it is. I want a conversation where people are having different perspectives that they're sharing with me so we can make sure we're looking at something from every angle, right? That team in 2018 included people who I promoted who made campaign contributions to my opponent, people who had supported my predecessor financially. Again, I don't care. I am not here to seek retribution on people who have opposed me. I'm here to serve the public. And if the best qualified person for the job is someone who supported my opponent, not just with their vote, but even with their money, I want them in this office. I want them doing this work. I want to work alongside them day in, day out. Since I was elected in 2018 and put those folks in place in 2019, we have had some retirements. And I'm here to tell you that it's still not a team that's exclusively made up of Democrats. It might actually be more Republicans at this point. And it still is a team that has plenty of people in the office in senior positions who made contributions to my opponent in 2018. This is important to me, right? We shouldn't be running any office that's supposed to serve everyone in the state as though it is meant to serve a single party. In fact, my opponent recently just said that the Republican Party of the state of Iowa owned this office for 50 years. It's true that I'm the first Democrat elected to it in 50 years. But what does that say to you about someone's mindset for them to say that their party owned the office? Who is this office supposed to serve? Everyone. This office should serve everyone. And one of the reasons that we have that tripartisan senior leadership team is because I want anyone in this state to know, I do not care who you vote for. I don't care how you're registered. I want you to come to our office, and I want you to tell me things that people in positions of trust and power have done wrong. And it doesn't matter who they are or how they are registered or who they vote for. We are going to take those complaints seriously because this is an office that's supposed to serve all Iowans, right? And we're going to be assertive about doing it. I think that's important. Tell me, so far I haven't found anyone who disagrees with this, but when you ask yourself, okay, you're going to have a watchdog, would you rather have a watchdog that barks a little bit too much or not quite enough? Which one's better? A little too much. It is much better to wake up every once in a while at 3 a.m. and look out into your driveway and see that nothing is wrong, than to wake up when you wanted to and get your cup of coffee and look out the window and see that your car's missing. So yeah, we're aggressive. But we've been aggressive with people in both parties. I get complaints from people in my party that we're too hard on so-and-so. I'm not sorry, okay? We're doing what we're supposed to do. We're doing it in a way that is as fair as possible. We're trying to serve the whole state of Iowa when we do that. I'm trying to think here. We've got about 8 minutes left. I think I'm ready for questions and answers. So who's got one? We'll start here. Next big idea after pie, something that I really would like to see us do in the state of Iowa is get public accounts online. So we should have a system where basically the bank statements for accounts that hold public funds should be available for Iowans to view online quickly after they are issued. I'd like to start this on a voluntary basis. I think we need to have a little bit of a test program, but we already have a piece of software that we purchased in 2019 that can take bank statements and automatically put them into Excel. Once we can do that, it's going to be a lot easier to promote transparency. Why is this important? Why? Well, let me tell you a story. When I was at the Attorney General's office, there was a case that I prosecuted that came out of the Auditor's office. There was a woman who handled the accounts for the Mahaska County Soil and Water Conservation District and also the Poweshiek County one. Poweshiek County, somebody on that board, every meeting said, well, let me see the bank records. Let's see where the money's going. Nobody in Mahaska County ever did that. Mahaska County, she stole $220,000. Poweshiek, not a penny. And so even just the idea that someone can pull those records up and that someone can be looking at those records is going to deter people, right, from misconduct. Again, it goes back to the idea of the office being assertive. We want the office to be assertive. We want to have transparency. Two things that I'll add in that regard that I think would be good changes that I've been asking the legislature to change. One is, I'm really tired of seeing people who steal a large amount of money from taxpayers just get probation. How does that make sense? Right? What we're doing is we're not discouraging anyone from stealing money if we tell them, oh, well, you'll just need to pay it back over the next 486 years, right? And you don't serve a day in prison. I'm not suggesting that we lock them up and throw away the key, but probation should be incredibly rare, if ever, a possible consequence for someone who steals a lot of money from taxpayers. I would love to see the legislature make that change. We would see less theft of public dollars in the state of Iowa. Here's another thing I think that I would like to see us do. We have never gone after people who are in the public sector who have made taxpayers pay for their own bad deeds, right? Why not? If you're a public employee and you sexually harass people, you should be held personally accountable for the money that you cost, right? Thank you. Here's what we're doing right now. Someone in public office harasses people, taxpayers foot the bill. And then you know what that person does? They probably get fired. Do you know what doesn't happen? They still get paid their pension. Here's an example for you. Dave Jamieson ran the Iowa Finance Authority, committed awful acts of sexual harassment while he was there. Not only that, he would intimidate people. He would harass people in front of other people. And if someone in that group of people had the courage to say, hey, Dave, cut that out. Don't do that. That's inappropriate. He might say something like, well, you must be allergic to a paycheck. Imagine that, right? So eventually some of his targets, thankfully, had the courage to stand up and say, we're sick of this. They sued the state of Iowa. They were paid as they should be to be made whole. And then the state of Iowa turned around and did nothing to hold Dave Jamieson accountable. This guy has been in public service for a long time. Do you know what the expected payout on an actuarial table for his pension is? Over $1.5 million. So he has cost taxpayers millions, and we haven't done anything to get that money back for taxpayers. Not to mention, I would hope this would be at the forefront of everyone's mind, how are we going to discourage sexual harassment and other wrongdoing by public employees? These are people who need, apparently, they need some personal reason, some personal impact for them to not do these kinds of things. So let's give it to them. So I guess there's three things I would like to see happen instead of just one, but they all have to do with the idea of accountability for people in positions of trust and power. We had a question up in the front row, maybe? Yes.
Medicaid.
What are we working on to improve Medicaid? It's a good question. Our office's powers, if you're looking at the state auditor's office, we can do two things. We can investigate and we can report. And those are powers. We can force folks to do stuff when it comes to that. So for example, University of Iowa didn't want to provide us with documentation when we requested documents regarding the state's biggest financial transaction ever. We now have $2.5 billion worth of debt through the University of Iowa. We're able to take them to court and force them to give us those documents. We're working on a report. Things that we find that are of interest, we are able to provide to the public. So if we see something in our investigation that is coming from a confidential area, we don't have to maintain confidentiality. Our job is to support that and shine a light on that. We don't have the power to actually force people to do anything. So we have conducted a number of Medicaid audits. They have been, they've had some pretty serious findings. When you ask medical professionals across 15 different professions in the state of Iowa if they think that access to care and quality of care have improved, the majorities actually say that it has made things worse. Only 9% and 6% of medical professionals in Iowa who had worked with Medicaid pre- and post-privatization thought it made things better. We also looked at records related to appeals. So if you're a Medicaid patient, you are being treated under a law, and there are ways that that law can be working or not working, but if someone mistreats you, you can appeal to a judge, right? So we looked at those appeals from the population of people who had their care privatized. We saw an 891% increase in illegal denials of care. The administration thought that we should have used different numbers, and so we used their numbers. With their numbers, we saw over a 500% increase in illegal denials of care. We have advocated for a universal coding system so that people who work in healthcare don't have to use different codes depending on which MCO they're working on. That hasn't been taken up either. But again, so what we're doing, we can shine a light, we can investigate what's going on and identify issues. We can't force folks to do something. I know I have just a minute left, but I want to say something else too, because again, I think this emphasizes the fact that we run this office in a way that was very serious about truth and integrity and accountability. So we were just talking about Medicaid. We've had some tough reports on that. We've also issued a couple of reports that have been friendly, been useful, been helpful to the Reynolds administration. Why are we doing that? Because it was true, because it was the facts, and because that's what we're after. A lot of people wondered, are the COVID numbers being suppressed? At the beginning of the pandemic, the positivity rating was something they used to decide how much to shut things down. Well, we did an audit of the numbers because people were wondering. They were saying, why are these numbers getting added after the fact? Turns out that the country's lab system wasn't ready for that onslaught of testing that results from a pandemic, and the Iowa Department of Public Health was doing the best they could to get those numbers through as quickly as possible. They just weren't getting them on time. So again, if we offer criticism from this office of someone, it's because they earned it. If we offer a defense to someone in this office, it's because they earned it. We are focused on integrity, and we are focused on the truth. We're focused on accountability, and that is why I would appreciate your support in my effort to be reelected as state auditor this year. Thank you all very much. That's my time.